Hey, welcome. We want to introduce for our coaches spotlight. We want to introduce Kate Jones. Kate has been in the kind of fitness and powerlifting scene in Wichita for building up to, I don't like quite a while at this point. I don't, but and so we're excited to have you on. We've been kind of working with you for several years at this point, and so we just want to kind of today just kind of see what you do and what you like to do, and kind of introduce you to some folks that might not know you already. So thanks for coming on, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely. Love chatting with you guys.
Yeah. So Kate, can we start with like a little bit of your background and stuff like that? Because you didn't start with this career field in mind. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I was actually a business major in college. So I went to WSU. I got my degree in marketing and I minored in management. So that was kind of the way I thought I was going to head, was down the marketing, into the marketing world. But I don't know, one thing led to another, and here I am. I had a fairly large transformation, I would call it myself. Back in 2011, I ran a marathon. And during that time, you know, how many miles you're running a week. And at the end of that marathon, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, why am I still chubby? Like, what, why do
Yeah.
I still look like I don't work out? Like, I didn't really understand, because I had been a runner my entire life, you know, track and cross country in high school. And then I ran the marathon in honor of my coach. He was dying of cancer at that time. And it was a really great experience for me, because it did teach me about the discipline and the, you know, planning and the preparation that it takes to train for something like that. So I really appreciated that time and what I learned during that process. But at the end of it, I just felt a little less than fulfilled, you know, and I didn't really feel like I understood why that wasn't going to be enough as far as my health and fitness went. So that's when I really started diving into strength and conditioning, and nutrition was a huge part of the learning curve that I had starting out with, because I'd always kind of pseudo worked out, you know, but it wasn't until I got my nutrition on track that I really started seeing some actual changes. So once I started seeing that, and once I had this, you know, body transformation, like, I realized it wasn't just my body, it was my brain as well. Like, I was learning how to respect myself, and I was making good choices, and I was, you know, keeping my promises to myself. And it really was this whole from the inside out kind of transformation that I just wanted to start sharing with people. So I started sharing my journey, and of course people started, you know, reaching out, what are you doing? You know, and I would talk to anybody and everybody that would listen to me. And you know, over the past 10 years, that's basically what I've done and how I've kind of approached my business, and it's worked out really well.
So thank you for sharing that, because it's really, I think it's really gratifying for people to know like that this stuff doesn't occur overnight, right? A lot of times we're like, oh man, Kate's got it figured out. She's got all this shit going. And, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I got to figure it out. But it took me 3 years, and it took me a long, you know, a lot of tears and a lot of effort and things like that. And so it's nice to hear that, like, not everyone has it figured out like right away, and it takes some time. So what was the transition for you from like, hey, I started dabbling in this thing with strength and conditioning, to like, oh, I'm going to make this into my job?
I think, like I said, it's kind of the realization I had that the transformation could reach multiple areas of your life, and I wanted more women to experience that. I wanted them to know what it felt like to be strong. I wanted them to know, you know, how good healthy feels. And I couldn't really shut up about it. You know, that was kind of, once my transformation happened, I was like, I got to tell everybody like about this amazing thing that is health and fitness, you know, and that's kind of how it all started. I don't think I ever realized at the beginning it would get as big as it has, but now it's just like, you put one foot in front of the other and you put your message out there, and the people that it resonates with are going to come find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So your first introduction, well, and I don't know for sure, like, so you did this kind of running, and then you did some personal training, and then you did, you know, some like fitness modeling or like some bikini shows and things like that. Like, because right now, you know, heavily into the powerlifting things and things like that. And so, you know, what kind of lessons did you learn from that, or how long were you in that, and why did we move to the powerlifting, and like, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say I'd started my journey on a site called bodybuilding.com. And
Yeah.
way back then, all
Okay.
all the information was free, and they had, you know, these amazing programs and nutrition advice and all this stuff. And I started there. And so I think that's kind of what spurred I started I would say, my fitness career in bodybuilding, because that's where I got all of my information from. And that's what everybody was doing, you know, at the time. So I started bodybuilding. I did that for about 3 years. And then I decided in that time, I actually had a coach. His name's Alberto Nunez. I don't know if you guys have heard of Team 3DMJ, or he's a huge natural bodybuilder. He's been doing it for years. And he had a really big influence on my life. But within the bodybuilding program that we were doing, he also had me doing the big three. I did squat, I did bench, and I did deadlift. And I absolutely loved it. So when I finally got burnt out on bodybuilding, because let's be honest, I really like food. Like the diet was the hardest part of bodybuilding. And at the end of the day, I was like, starving yourself for 16 and 20 weeks at a time isn't necessarily healthy. I know why people do it, and I don't dog on anybody that does. I think it is a really good test in discipline and denying yourself, and just being in gratitude for what we do have, and knowing that that can be taken away at any time. There's lots of great lessons to be learned in bodybuilding, but for me, it became something unhealthy, and so I had to make a switch. But because I was always a competitor, I have always been a competitor. I always felt like I need a goal. Like if I don't have a goal, I have clients who they're in the gym because they know they need to be in the gym, and that's what they do because it's healthy. And I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. Like, I wish I could just do it because
yeah,
it's like brushing your teeth. Like we do it because we know we should, not because there's some reward at the end of it, right? But that really never worked for me. So I always had to have some type of goal. So when I started this kind of dabbling in powerlifting, like that was really my next thing. And it became something that was like really cool because I could eat as much as I wanted to, and it actually helped my performance instead of the opposite way. So yeah, I started powerlifting probably about 8 years ago, and I never looked back. It's the community and the sport itself, I think, are just an amazing resource for especially women who want to learn how to lift and lift properly. And it's functional fitness. You need to squat, press, and pull your entire life. So that's what I love about it. Anybody can do it. And it's really just become a huge passion for me.
Well, I kind of want to speak to that because that is kind of this is your niche is women powerlifters and things like that. And so this is like one of the fastest growing sports out there is like females, like especially females over 40 getting into powerlifting and Olympic lifting. And the biggest thing that we kind of hear about this is like, they've been, forever, they've been told like, hey, I've got to do all this cardio and I've got to be on the elliptical and I have to do things that I hate. But what are some of the like transformations that you've seen for people's confidence as much as anything? Like, hey, I just lifted that really heavy thing and I feel awesome now. Like, what are some of those things that you can kind of point to with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think women don't often get the opportunity to show their strength. And when you can put, 200 pounds on the bar and they can bend over and pick it up like that, I don't know. There's just something changes. And I can tell like within probably the first 2 or 3 sessions of powerlifting with somebody, if they're going to love it or they're going to hate it, and usually it doesn't take very long. And if they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like I just lifted that, like, I know I can see that kind of, that spark in their eye. And I really do think it is about, you go into the gym, you put in the reps, you're going to see the results. And it's not tied to the scale per se, but it is tied to still a tangible number, because I still think people need a tangible something to measure their progress by. And so often it's been the scale that when we finally take that out of the equation, we're like, hey, let's focus on your performance. And the outside's going to come along with that. We know that, but it's really hard to get people past that. And if I can get them focused on their powerlifting numbers instead of on their scale numbers and their measurements, like all that stuff is going to take care of itself.
Yeah. And so you are now the chairperson, what the chair of the USAPL for Kansas, right? And so how did that kind of progress to, and what are some of your goals and some of your duties with this organization?
Yeah, so I took over the state chair position in January. The previous state chair, his name is Wayne Hurl, and he had been doing this for 17 years. We'd have 3 or 4 meets every year in Kansas, and they were always, very well run and very efficient. And it was kind of something that I honestly didn't know that I wanted to do until probably the last 6 months. And Wayne was like, hey, I need to step down. It's time for me to pass the baton. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm opening a gym, I'm doing all these things. Like, is this really something that I should do at this point? But I think for me, I love building community so much that I felt like that's all that this is. USAPL Kansas is a community, and I already know how to do that. I know how to build boot camp programs and online resources and all these things. And I felt like a lot of my strengths would play really well into that state chair position. And so I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. I love the sport. I love Kansas. I love communities. It's all going to be fine. And it has been, and that's because I have such an amazing tribe of women around me who are there to support me, help run the meets. As a meet or as a state chair, really my job is to not direct all the meets. I can have other people direct the meets, but I'm there as a resource for whoever is directing those meets. I get all sanctions approved, so all the approvals have to go through the national office. And I manage the state budget, which is currently zero because I just started. So it's definitely a learning process. But again, I think for me, my biggest role is making sure that everybody knows that USAPL Kansas is changing and we are here for the athletes. We want to make meet day as amazing as possible. I want it to be an amazing experience for every single competitor that walks into wherever we're at and knows that like this is a USAPL meet. It's going to be ran fairly, it's going to be ran efficiently, and we're going to have a good time.
Cool. Well, so now you're talking about community, and you kind of mentioned that you're opening up a gym, and this is like super, super exciting stuff. And we talked a little bit before we started recording on some of the trials and tribulations of what is commercial real estate and things like that. But tell us your goals for this gym, and what is your vision on this thing? This is super exciting.
It is. It's terrifying, but equally exciting. I honestly, when I first started personal training, I had no interest in opening my own gym. I was like, that's a ton of work. Like I see I saw what my mentors went through, and I'm like, man, I'm like, I just want to help people. Like I don't want to, do all that other stuff. But as I've been in the fitness community and as I've visited, several different gyms in town, there was always just something missing, and I felt like I have a vision and I couldn't make my vision fit in anybody else's box. And so I tried like several times, I've tried. But I finally just came to the realization. I'm like, you know what? You're never going to do it if you don't do it now. And if you don't do it now, you're going to wonder your entire life whether you should have done it or not. And really, my vision is to just create a welcoming, clean, friendly environment for anybody to come who is looking to get stronger mind, body, and spirit. And that's my goal. Like I want it to feel like your second home when you go in there. I want people to know your name. I want it to be a community where people feel supported and not just somewhere you go to pick some stuff up and put it down, and that's kind of the direction I'm going with. I'm hoping to bring on some trainers as well who, feel the same way and want the same things. I'm also trying to make it very easy for trainers to come into my facility because I've been there. I've been at a gym that's taken 50% of my revenue. I've been at a gym where, I had to pay this and that and the other, and they weren't doing anything for me, right? But if I can give them a space where they can do what they need to do, but also feel supported at the same time, like that's really my goal. Because like I said, I've been down several different roads, and I feel like, especially from a trainer point of view, I know what people want and need, and it's lacking here in Wichita. I haven't found anywhere else that fits that mold, and so I wanted to create it.
Yeah. There are so many examples, and in some of the folks that we talk to on the physical therapy side, I think there's so many examples of people that are reluctant entrepreneurs, like never wanted to do it, didn't plan on doing it. No one was doing it the way I wanted to do it. So by golly, I guess I'm going to have to go do it myself. And so some of the most successful people in the world are that kind of person. Like I have this vision, here's how things should be. I guess I'll have to do it myself. So that's cool as well too. So for the folks that are coming in or maybe interested in your gym, what kind of clients or athletes kind of respond the best to your coaching style, and who are the folks that like really like you hit it out of the park with, like, oh my God, this is exactly what I was looking for?
I resonate really well with women, obviously. They're typically between the ages, I would say probably 30 to 50. And really they have a love for being a part of something bigger. like I said, I'm really huge on community and making sure that, I'm not just here for myself, I'm here for everybody else. I run these boot camp classes that are really focused on, hey, you've got 10 women here that are all invested in you improving and making sure you're here and show up, not just for yourself, but for everybody else. I think I probably have a couple of different niches, I would say, because I have my boot camp classes, but then I also do a lot of online work. I do a lot of online programming for my powerlifters. And so you really, for that niche, you kind of have to be a self-starter. You have to be able to hold yourself accountable. Now, we do weekly check-ins. So, of course, I'm trying to add that layer of accountability. But at the same time, like, I'm always going to come back to, hey, I can tell you what to do, but if you can't implement the program, it's not going to do any good, So I'm very big on self-ownership and teaching women that, like, you are not a victim. Like, if you want what you say you want, we got to put in the work. And I will say, for some women that doesn't resonate well. I'm not a hand holder. I'm not a ooey gooey, I'm not a feely girl. I do love my clients, and I think they know that and they appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm not just going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. And for most of them, it works out pretty well.
That's what we, from our kind of physical therapy side of things, we tell people the same thing. Like, I can be the GPS on your dashboard. I can tell you how to get there, but you're driving the bus. We only get there when you decide. So that accountability stuff is huge. And there's some people
so
that
if you don't do your PT, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah, it's crazy how that works. And so, yeah, that's it's something that we completely, I think, resonate with. So, kind of maybe along those same lines, there's so many, it's hard. I don't know if it's harder now than it's ever been. There's always been, muscle magazines and things like that make it hard. But now, we're just flooded with stuff on Instagram and all these other places. And, there's so much information and misinformation and myths and misconceptions and things like that. What is, like, the one or two things that you're repeatedly running into that if somebody came into you, I said, I wish I could just extract this from your brain, and I wish you had never heard this because it's so not true. What is there anything like that you just are constantly, like, pounding the drum about?
Well, something I'm always pounding the drum about is stress management is weight management. I see so many women today that are they're pressed to the gills, they can't, and then they wonder why they never feel like they can catch their breath, and they're barely holding their head above water, and they're like, but I want to lose weight. And I'm like, if your body is always in fight or flight mode, that's not going to happen. Yeah. And I had to learn that the hard way myself, so it's, that's one thing that I'm definitely very much, especially in the past, like, year, since the pandemic and all this, it's really like, hey, in our daily habits, we're going to work on things like meditation and getting outside, because that's what humans were supposed to do. We're not meant to sit at a desk under fluorescent lighting for 8 hours a day. Like, that's not what we're supposed to do. And so helping your body in different ways, I think, has been more of an emphasis for me in the past couple of years than it was before. I was a strict, like, count your macros and calories in, calories out. And I'm like, that doesn't work if your body isn't in the proper place for it to work. So we got to get it there first.
Since you're on that, and I'm reading Stacey Sims' book, Roar now. Her other one is coming out, I think, this month or in the next couple of weeks or something like that, about perimenopausal women and things like that. But this is one of the things that we run into all the time. And I think Clayton actually did a video about it last week, is, just this chronic calorie deficit that women are running in all the time. Like, we're talking about like 11 or 1200 calories, and they're working out 5 or 6 days a week. Like, they're not even, like, hitting their BMR on a regular basis, plus they're exercising. And so how often are you having to tell women, cool, you have to eat to lose weight, or you have to eat to be healthier or feel better? Like, how often does that come up for you?
Yeah. I like the term, more, what is it? More is not more. What is it? You know what I'm trying to say?
More isn't better. Better is better.
More isn't better. Better is better. Yes. Because that has been, what's been kind of ingrained in us is that, oh, I just need to eat less and move more, eat less and move more, and that doesn't work. And my challenge to them is always, okay, if that worked, you wouldn't be here with me right now, Yeah. So let's try something different, and really, being purposeful about our habits and what we're doing daily, instead of, oh, I'm going to be on this diet for 30 days. I tell people right off the bat when they come to work with me, I'm like, this isn't a 30-day process. I said, 6 months, 9 months, a year. I said, we might be somewhere where we can actually, work with something. I said, but, there's red flags that I always look for when I'm doing an intake questionnaire. And a lot of times I see all of them. It's like, how are your stress levels? Oh, they're at a 10. How many days a week do you work out? 6. How many calories are you eating? Between 12 and 1400.
Yeah.
All right. So
Cool.
here's what I want to tell you. You're not going to
Yeah.
like me, but this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And I think when you approach it that way, instead of promising them something that is never going to happen with methods that have not worked for them before, like it's you get some buy-in, and the way we create buy-in is by saying, hey, let's do these 5 things and let's see how we feel in 2 weeks. And 90% of the time, if they're drinking more water, if they're getting more quality sleep, their energy is going to be up, their inflammation is probably going to be down. So while the scale hasn't moved, they're probably going to look better. They're definitely going to feel better. So you get that kind of buy-in, and then you're able to kind of be like, okay, now we're going to add like 200 calories a day, right? And I think that really helps them see like, oh, my body feels like trash. And if my body feels like trash, it's not going to do what it's supposed to do.
I think that's one of the things that people realize, like when they go in there and start cleaning up, like what we call like the 4 pillars of health, like your sleep, your nutrition, your stress management, and your movement. And we start taking care of those things, like they don't realize like how good humans can feel. Like, oh shit, I felt like low level crappy all of the time. Your watch will tell you like, oh yeah, it's a good night of sleep. And then you're drinking, like you're self-soothing or you're doing something and you're just never sleeping well. You're never fully recovered and you're just burning the candle at both ends. And so I don't think people realize like, oh, wow, there's this whole other thing I've never even experienced. Kate, we'll kind of wrap up here. I've got 3 questions I want to ask you and kind of everyone else. But before we get to that, like, what is your proudest moment? You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're a coach, and like, what is the thing that you can kind of point to and be like, hey, I did that and that was pretty cool?
Probably directing that meet this last March. Like directing my first meet was one of my proudest moments. But a very close second is literally anytime one of my girls steps on the platform and has a great meet. Like I feel so much joy watching them be successful, like even way more than me going to nationals or any of the lifts that I've hit. I would consider my big lifts or whatever. Like you can't describe the feeling of joy when you have joy for somebody else. I think it just amplifies that feeling. So the meet was a big one, and seeing that be successful. But then my girls are the center of my heart, and watching them compete is awesome.
Yeah, it's nice. You get to kind of break your heart and you put it into like 8 little bodies walking around there, and like you experience the highs with them, you experience the lows with them. They're kind of like your little kids running around out there.
Yeah, I do. I say that all the time. People ask if I'm going to have kids, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I got like 30 of them." They all need something every day, and I'm totally cool with that. That's what I signed on for, and I love them to death.
This is one of the questions we've asked our athletes of the month for several years. And so, what is something that you've always wanted to try that you have never done?
Skydiving.
Me too. Okay, now I have a partner because people won't do it with me. I'm going to do it this summer. It's on my 1-year bucket list.
We were supposed to do it for Tyler's birthday last year, and we did not because I was going to nationals, and I was like, I don't want to skydive before I go.
Yeah.
So we put it off, and then it just never happened. So yeah, let us know when you're going. Let's go do it.
All right. I already promised somebody else.
Okay.
Well, no. He's like, no, you have to do it. He doesn't live here. It's like, oh, okay. Well, now we have this. Okay, cool. What is something that you wish that you could tell a younger version of yourself? Wise Kate shows up in a time machine and be like, hey, dummy, here's this.
Hey, dummy, don't drink the beer.
Oh man.
Don't do it. Just don't even start. Like that's seriously one of the number one things and even younger, athletes, competitors that I talk to, because I was on a really good trajectory when I was in high school. I was a pretty decent runner, and I probably could have got some scholarship. I probably should have, could have went somewhere with it. And then you get in, and I wasn't even in with the wrong crowd. I just made the wrong decisions, and it really did affect my performance. And, that's something that I always look back on and go, why did I even start?
We have all this data now, and it's maybe we think it's easier to point to and be like, look at this damage that you're doing. Like, but we can feel it. Like when you're 22 years old and you're drinking 6 days a week, like you feel like shit all the time. You're just like, it's okay. Like this is how humans feel when I'm 20. And so
that's what we're supposed to do. And I think that's one of the things too, is alcohol is such a huge part of our culture that you can't get away from it, and that's something that has really been big on my heart lately. It's like, you don't have to drink. I don't know if you know this, but you don't have to drink. Like, and I think that's mind blowing for people.
This is what I tell people. And again, humans are so like self-centered. They think, hey, if I'm not doing this, what's everyone around me going to think? Like, they don't care. No one cares. They're concerned about themselves only. They don't care what you're doing. Like, yeah. Okay. What is the best piece of advice that you could provide to people out there? Like, whether it's fitness advice or whether it's, mindset advice or whatever it is, like, if you had a walking billboard, if you had a billboard and it was Kate Jones, signed at the bottom, what's your billboard going to say?
It's going to sound really cliche, but habits are everything.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's spiritually, physically, in our relationships, like you need to have some non-negotiables that you just do every single day. And it may seem like they're not working in the beginning, but it adds up over time. It's a snowball effect. And in the beginning, it's really small, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see it, maybe not right away, but you're gonna see the fruits of that labor eventually.
You put those small little things on autopilot, and you get to go add something different and things like that. That's perfect. And I think it's something that folks struggle with, going creating a new habit, because they're trying to go from 0 to 90 in one step. And it's like you said earlier, like it has to be this incremental thing. And so that's perfect. So, Kate, thanks so much for coming on. Like, this was a lot of fun. I always love chatting with you. I can't wait to go see your new spot.
You too.
Our spot. I know, we're so excited for that. So, Kate, let everybody know where we can find you on like, what's the best place to find you, I guess, physically when that comes up, and then also on the socials as well too.
Sure. Yeah. Physically, we are going to be in downtown Wichita. We're between we're between Hillside and Grove on Douglas Street. There's a new little cocktail bar called Douglas Social. It's right next to us. I know, not ideal. Maybe it is ideal. I'm not really sure yet. But we're right next to them. So that's where we'll be physically, hopefully within the next month. And on social, I'm on Instagram a lot more frequently than Facebook. It's at Kate Loves to Lift. If you're interested in powerlifting, USAPL Kansas Powerlifting is on Instagram as well. And lastly, thank you guys, because I send literally probably 80% of my clients.
It seems like eventually.
Yeah, that sounds really, I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, why do I send so many people to them? But then it's like, because you guys know your stuff, like, and I stay in my lane and I know what I know. And I know you guys always kill it. And my girls go and see you and they come back and they're better for it. So I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate it too. Kate, thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
Bye.